Good morning or afternoon all. So Marta's project on the Australian Flammability Monitoring System is a bushfire natural hazards CRC project. It is now in the second phase of the project, so we're up to about year 4. And this is an important milestone where we are today, and one of the main things we want to get out of today is feedback on the system. So we want to know a couple of things. Initially, what testing and validation of the system as it currently exists, where we see the best applications, most suitable applications of the system, and how we might go about testing and validating it, and then feedback on future developments. So just on that, as long as everybody stays muted there, we do want to get feedback at the end of Marta's presentation. So hang on to your questions, or you are free to type them in the text box down the bottom left of your screen. So with that, I'll hand over to Marta and then look forward to your questions at the end of Marta's presentation. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As Andrew already said, the Bushfire Natural Hazards CRC and the ANU are together developing the Australian Flammability Monitoring System. That is a web-based tool that allows the user to visualize, explore, and analyze spatial and temporal data about landscape, scale, fuel and soil moisture content, and fuel flammability. This presentation is a brief tour of the Australian Flammability Monitoring System, and I hope you enjoy it. All right. Okay, so the map selectors allows you to choose the type of map you want to see. Then the legend explains the map you are looking at. For example, if you select the live fuel moisture content map, you can see the information here that this is the amount of water in the live fuel per dry mass derived from MODIS satellite imagery and radiative transfer model inversion techniques following this methodology. If you select the live fuel moisture content uncertainty, you can see that this is the uncertainty in the retrieval of fuel moisture content, characterized as the standard deviation of the distribution of plausible fuel moisture content values retrieved from MODIS satellite imagery, following the methodology previously mentioned. If you select the flammability layer, you see that it's an index from 0 to 1, derived from logistic regression models trained on fire events mapped with MODIS burn area product and 4 predictor variables calculated from the satellite-based fuel moisture content product. So the fuel moisture content, the uncertainty, and the flammability are available at a resolution of 500 meters and a 4-day time step. You will notice that the latest information can be up to a few weeks old. Here, for example, today the latest information is from the 5th of March. This time lag is due to the delay between satellite observations and downstream processing at NASA, CSIRO, and the ANU. Over the coming months, we will be trying to take measurements to reduce this delay to a few days. So if you select the soil moisture content data, these data are produced by the Bureau of Meteorology's Jasmine modeling system that was also developed as part of the Bushfire Natural Hazards CRC. They are available at 5 kilometer resolution and weekly time steps, and for 2 soil layers, from 0 to 10 centimeters and from 10 to 35 centimeters. The data currently is up to February, but this data too will be brought into production shortly. Each data layer can be visualized using the interactive time selector that allows the user to select the date and location of interest for mapping. The location can be selected using some geographic coordinates, as you can see here, or using a specific address. You just start typing and the address will appear, then select and click in the search button and you will be taken there. To assist in spatial orientation, some GIS layers can be selected to combine with the map. This included the far weather areas, the local government areas, the states and territories, national parks, and natural resource management regions. We could include any other layer that you think it could be of interest. So you can zoom in or out using the scroll button of your mouse or the plus and minus buttons on your keyboard. Then you can also, the map can be made semi-transparent to see underlying contextual information that can be either the raw mapping or the satellite imagery. So to get a feel for the conditions on the ground, you can also use the Google Street View feature. So you just need to drag and drop the pegman in the area you are of interest. And then you can use the arrows and controls to look around and zoom in or out. Note that this photo will often not be from the year you have selected originally. Then you can click the arrow to go back to the map you were previously visualizing. You can manually select any location on the map, and this will return a time series plot of the variable of interest for the year up to the selected date, as well as for other preceding years for comparative purpose in light blue. So the data chart can be downloaded directly for you to open and do further analysis. Please, you need to be aware that the Australian Flammability monitoring system is currently an experimental system undergoing active research. When you visit the site for the first time, you will also get a disclaimer to that effect, as you can see here. Furthermore, the system relies on modest data and web server infrastructure provided by the National Computational Infrastructure. Although the system is reliable, it does mean that there can be occasional planned and unplanned service interruptions. So have that into account. So as Andrew said, at this stage, we would like to ask for your feedback as to the website design and features to help us to better meet your requirements. And any type of feedback is welcome and will be considered in future developments. You can give us your feedback now at the end of this presentation, or if you need some more time to play with the website, you can also send us the feedback by clicking on the Send Feedback button here. All right. And then finally, you can find more information about the system and the data layers, as well as the references to the methodologies used to derive the different layers in the About This Site button, as you can see here. All right, so I think that was the tour of the Bushfire Natural Hazard CRC, a new Australian Flammability monitoring system as it currently stands, and we hope to launch an update of the system in September this year. So that's why your feedback is so important. So thanks for your attention, and if you have any feedback or questions, just let me know. So Greg, I think I can open the floor now for questions.
Okay, thanks Marta. So just for everyone's benefit, I'm going to open this up into teleconference mode. Can you please make sure your phones are on mute unless you're asking a question?
The moderator has placed the conference into presentation mode. All participants are now muted. The moderator has placed the conference into conversation mode. All participants are now unmuted.
Okay, so Marta, it's open to you for questions.
The current map date is 2017, the most Oh, so what's the most up-to-date data we've got now, and how current do we expect the data to be, Marta?
Yes, so right now it's about 10, 12 days old. So the more recent date is the 5th of March. But yeah, as I mentioned, this is because of there are several steps we do before doing the processing. We need to get the data from NASA, then it needs to be stored in the NCI, and then we need to run the algorithms. So yeah, we are trying to decrease this delay time as much as possible, and I think we can be able to provide information up to 2 days before the current date. But I would like to encourage you to use it anyway. I mean, most of you may be aware that live fuel is not that dynamic, so perhaps 10 days delay is not such a big deal, although of course it would be great to have it closer to the date.
Yep, so live fuel moisture isn't in any fire behaviour models now. You're working with fire behaviour people, or people that might be working to include it in fire spread?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point. So we were hoping some of the Bushfire Natural Hazard CRC project looking into fire behaviour modelling will also try to include live fuel, but that's not happening at the moment. So I'm collaborating with Phil Fistra from the Wollongong University because he developed a model that actually has into as an input the live fuel moisture content for the different layers in a forest. And yes, we are working together to see how, first of all, he's still into implementing his model into a spatial software. And once he finishes with that, we are going to plug our fuel moisture content products into his model. But that's nothing that is going to happen in a few weeks' time, I guess.
Yep, thanks. There's a question in the chat box there. It's come to my attention from Clinton. Can you see that, Marta?
Yes. Yes. Not at the moment. So the question is that if there an opportunity for forecast models to be included. At the moment, we don't have capability to forecast fuel moisture content. Well, I wrote a research proposal last year for the ERC to do this, but it didn't succeed. So, yeah, I get that will need more research to be feasible. You are welcome, Clayton. What are the four? Yeah, I can see one question from Tim. What are the 4 predictor variables included in the flammability layer? Yeah, thank you for the question. So at the moment, the flammability considered as variables the fuel moisture content of the week before the current date, the anomaly of the fuel moisture content with respect to the previous years, and then the difference between the fuel moisture content between 16 and 8 days before the current date. So these variables, the difference account for quick change in fuel moisture content, and then the anomaly obviously account for an anomalous value of fuel moisture content with respect to other dates. Is that clear enough?
Yeah, and look, I don't know if you can hear me, Marta. I was too scared to talk to start with, but yeah, that sounds good. And so do we think of it as a sort of difference from normal, or a sort of a comparative value compared with that region's normal flammability?
Sorry, Tim, you were cut a bit when talking. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. So I think the flammability, we think of it as for the particular area, how flammable it or how dry it is compared with normal for live fuel moisture. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So yeah, we compared burned and unburned areas. We compared the fuel moisture content of burned and unburned areas, and we adjust a model to explain those differences.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So further developments on these lines will also include other fuel condition parameters that also influence flammability, because we know it's not only about fuel moisture content but also fuel load and structure of the fuel.
Hi, Marta. It's Lockie McCaw from Western Australia. I'm thinking of multi-layered vegetation, you know, like a forest where you have a canopy layer with a characteristic moisture content, and then perhaps a layer of tall mid-story shrubs, and then an understory. When the satellite is, you know, looking at that, each of those will have different characteristic moisture contents. So I guess, are we seeing an average or an integrated value for all of those?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and there is no clear answer. I mean, it really depends on the type of forest and the openness of the forest. So we have a very closed forest. Of course, as this method relies on optical data, it won't penetrate the canopy, and you will mainly be sensing the water content of the canopy. But if the forest is a bit more open, it might be more an integrated measurement of the different layers in the forest.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's only really what the satellite can sense that will make that.
Yeah, again, it will depend of the type of forest and the openness of the forest. So yeah, the open the forest is, the more chances are that the fuel moisture content is going to be an integrated measurement of all the layers in that forest.
Yep. Thanks.
Just to follow on from that, Marta, do we get an idea of what layer we're likely to be seeing, or how open or closed the forest is from your map?
No, at the moment. We could add other information, other satellite products that give you information about that. That's something we could do. Some information of fraction of cover. Yeah. I do think that would be useful.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to know, what layer it is in the strata that we're in the live fuel moisture for.
Yeah, that's a nice suggestion, yeah.
Yeah, and there's another question there from Adam and
Yes. So what's the opportunity for verification using direct measurements? Okay. So the model has been validated using fuel moisture content measurements around Australia, and some preliminary analysis and results are in this reference I show here. And but the full validation is under press now, so it's going to be published soon. So yeah, the data set, the estimates have been validated. But I didn't present it that today because I was more focused on the website itself more than in the databases. But I can send the paper around as soon as it's published, so you can have a look at the accuracy of the methodology. And then how will this fit into systems? I'm not sure what that means. So Adam asked about how will this fit into the system. I'm not sure about that question. I don't know what it really means.
Oh, Marta, it's Tony and Adam here. We're just we undertake regular fuel measurements, both for live fuel and flammability for dead fuel moisture. We look at using the Wiltronics. We also weigh our live fuel. We have rain gauge information, and we also have some soil probe information on from basically weather station information and things that we're measuring directly in the field. We're just seeing a bit like the graphene system, where there's a field verification to say, well, actually this is what's happening at the moment in that particular view. Is there an opportunity to feed that information into your system at the moment to sort of say, look, in this particular location, we've actually found that the fuel moisture to be at this particular level, or live fuel moisture to be a bit higher or a bit lower.
Yes, I guess I can see the value on using that information you have to validate the system, but I'm not sure how we could use it to inform the system, if that's what you were suggesting. I know, for example, for the curing satellite product, they use the observation to somehow tune the estimates to give values closer to the observer's network, but in this case, I'm not sure how we could integrate it.
Okay.
Yeah, hi Marta, it's Adam here. I guess I sort of see the other side of Tony's question in the sense of so you've done some really good work in being able to get some live fuel moisture content values from the satellite and present that information for use, and somewhere between the research and the operations is that utilisation area where it switches from being your technical information that you're producing to the operational side, and it's in there that practitioners all over Australia need to understand what these values mean for their landscape. And it relates to Lockie's question as well, where he's asking you about what does it mean? What does this number mean? And of course it can mean different things in different places, and you can see that in the graphs, where the graph is coming up very, very red in the landscape, and then you can see the forest is coming up very blue. But you actually need to understand in your own landscape what numbers are going to be important for forest, for the things that you want to know, either in relation to ability to suppress a fire or being in a suitable condition to burn, and the same in the forest. So somewhere in a research utilisation process, the bushfire sector needs to understand how they will use it. And then, I guess I think in relation, is it Tim's question? Oh, I wasn't Tim. The thing being there that you're going to have the industry is going to need to work it out for themselves and understand what those values mean. I think it's very unlikely that we'd be feeding back information to you to then to then sort of scale your data for our needs in our particular places, if you see what I'm saying. I think that's a step too far. I think what you've done is probably what's reasonable, and then operationally the fire sector is going to need to understand what it's seeing in relation to its own landscapes. So that wasn't a question.
Well, it's a good comment, yes, but I guess this conversation needs to go both ways. You need to understand that data, but I can help perhaps to make you understand it, and at the same time, if I understand better how you operate, I may be able to make suggestions on how you could use the data. And that's something Adam and myself have been doing over the last few weeks. Anyway.
Yeah, to sort of go further with that, we've been trying to use it, and of course what we'll do is we'll have a burn map, and it'll be of a particular area, and of course we'll be wanting to know about the fuel in that area and the fuel state, and I guess I think that the the display of these data is really good, but when it comes down to that moment that you want to understand what's going to happen on your burn, it's almost, well, I mean, I feel like as if I can make better use of it if I can download the data and then put it into ArcGIS over the top of the burn map. I guess I think that's something that's going to be able to bring my understanding further forward, because at the moment we look at it and try to match it up with where the burn is, and that's a little bit of a barrier in understanding what it's telling us.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. That's a very good suggestion, and we can easily implement and downloading function in the website. So yeah, that's something that we can definitely do. So you can download the data and plug it in your own system. Yeah, I take note of that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll ask one more question, Marta, about that Tim was asking about. It's a relative live fuel moisture.
Relative? No, it's a percentage of fuel moisture content, so it's a percentage of water per dry mass. Is that the question?
Yeah, so it's not comparing it to any long-term average, it's the actual.
No, it's the actual, yes. Yeah, I think in one of the RAF meetings, somebody asked or suggest that it would be also useful to visualize the anomaly itself, although that anomaly is somehow included in the calibration of the flammability index. Somebody also suggested that actually visualizing the anomaly would be useful. And that makes sense, because in absolute terms, perhaps the accuracy is not very good, but if you use it in relative terms, it can give you very important information, I guess.
Yes, for me, the relative value is more meaningful than the actual until we get a better understanding, like Adam's talking about. Applying it, the actual values is going to be a slow process, but a relative value is more easily interpreted and maybe more useful in the short, if that's possible.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, good suggestion. Yeah.
Another question from Clinton.
Yes. Yeah, importing a polygon into the system. Yeah, again, it will depend in which direction we want to push this. Adam was suggesting the opposite direction. Adam was suggesting to be able to download the data so you can overlay it in your own system with whatever you want. But here we are some person suggesting the other way around, to be able to import polygons. I guess I'm not sure how it is to do that, but I guess it will be feasible. Yeah. Again, it will depend how you want to use the system. Yeah.
Marta, Tim again. So I've got another question just around scale. So 500 resolution or 500 metre resolution for your data. I'm assuming that there would be a lot of variation within that, and that we should be using this at a landscape scale to pick broad trends rather than at burn unit scale, and just want to hear your thoughts about that.
Yes, again, it will depend where in Australia, but yeah, in our territory of the ACT, definitely 500 metres is going to be very heterogeneous in most of the cases. So looking at landscape values will be probably be more better. We in the longer term, well, by the end of this year, we need to explore all the satellite imagery. I have to say that the methodology we use is not dependent of the sensor, so it can be applied to any sensors. So we are planning to use also other sensors to increase the spatial and temporal resolution. So in our plans are to apply the methodology to Landsat, that is 30 meters, but 16 days temporal resolution. But also Sentinel-2, that is 15 meters and about 4 days. So again, I think at the end of the year, you may be able to have a fuel moisture content map in different spatial and temporal resolution. And it will be a question of using the different maps in combination depending of your management needs.
And have you looked at the finer spatial scale to know, is there much variation within the 500 metre resolution, or you don't know that yet?
Well, I look at too fine scale with a project that I had with Airbus that we had to compute the algorithm for spot imagery, and that was 1.5 meters. And of course, in there you have too much variability, so the data look too noisy. So I don't think that would be ideal either. But yeah, again, it will depend on where and which kind of ecosystem we are looking at. In some places, in some grassland paddocks, for example, 500 meter resolution is going to be fine, and there is not going to be much heterogeneity. But in some forested areas, in small or very with strong topography features, 500 meters might be no idea.
Thanks.
Adam again. For our landscape, where we were thinking of where we'd like to try and use it is when, for example, we've got a gully line that might be serving as our containment, which, you know, the sad state of affairs when you have to do that, but sometimes it's essential, and there's quite a bit of risk there. And so, of course, what you're looking for is variation across some sort of topographic feature. And so I guess I thought that 500 metres does seem a little bit too big for the landscape, but on the other hand, it's possible, if you can see patterns across the landscape, to go to places where, yep, here's a pixel on a 500 metre pixel on the northwest side, and here's a 500 metre pixel on the southeast side, and this is the variation that we're seeing. It need not necessarily be exactly what is on your burn, which might be at a scale that is too small to get data specific to a particular aspect. So I guess I didn't think that the resolution was going to be the key issue with this, although I absolutely agree with those that are talking about a finer resolution. It does seem like it could be more helpful, but it may not be if it's really really messy. So the other thing that you don't see on the system at the moment is, so you know, all of the forest, which, for example, from the work we've been doing with MARTA, you know, the eucalypt canopy can say vary. There might be two species in the eucalypt canopy. One's from the sampling suggesting it's about 140% live FMC, and the other one in the canopy 120 live FMC, and so the combination of those is what's giving you the reading from the canopy layer. Mm-hmm. You know, there's all of that that's going into what you're seeing, and you sort of just need to work out how that's going to relate to your landscape. So, you know, one of the things that happened for us in the last few days that we've been burning is we did get one of our burns out of shape, and it started going uphill, and it burnt very hot. But when it got to the top of the hill, it went out, and that is suggesting that the landscape was, you know, we were roughly at the right point in the landscape. It was just that that gully line where we got it out of shape probably wasn't, well, we know wasn't actually enough of a gradient across to control it. So I guess I'm thinking that we'll be able to find ways of using it, no matter what as long as the resolution is 500 or less, we'll be able to find ways to meet those needs. And so for suppression of a wildfire, we'd be looking at a much sort of broader level. But for planning our planned burns, we're probably looking specifically, or looking within the landscape for the specific aspects and particular features that we can then infer to our own burns. So I guess that's what I've been thinking is the way we might be able to use it, and that's why it becomes so helpful in being able to bring it into ArcGIS. And you've got all this other information in your own system that's been incorporated into what you're going to do, the lighting patterns, the fuel loads that are present. So although the importation into MARTA's system would be a helpful step forward, it's not going to give you the same sort of power that you'll get if you can bring it into all of the other data that you're using in planning your burn.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Yeah. Any further thoughts around that?
Tim again. Yeah, just really interested, Adam. It sounds like you've been using it a bit already. And is it also useful for things like burn objectives? And just the simple one that comes to mind for me is scorch. But I'm thinking, yeah, is it a good tool for helping predict burn severity? Or, yeah, I don't know. It just sounds interesting. Keen to hear how else you've used it.
Yeah, look, Tim. I mean, MARTA's presenting just one part of the work. So when we were first talking about this, the fuel moisture content is a really important aspect of fire severity and fire behaviour, but also the actual fuel itself. So just in the last few days, we've had for the first time some LiDAR-derived fuel maps, and so we are seeing patterns in relation to especially the elevated fuel and fire behaviour and propensity to spot, or at least to cross over our containment in places where you have a lot of elevated fuel. So there's going to be this combination. There's going to be this combination of so what we will be able to do is we'll be able to do some fire severity analysis from the burns that we've run, and we will be able to look at how much elevated fuel may have contributed to the severity that we observe. It'll be a whole nother level to be looking at the fuel moisture content, but I guess in time with these tools you would be able to do that. But yeah, we're sort of more. It's an interesting thing that there's this barrier, I think, within our sector to using this information, because we're still all trying to understand what it means. Whereas when we brought out the LiDAR-based fuel maps, people just went, "Hey, love that. Have you got another one for my burn?" So you show somebody who's doing the first burn, "Oh, do you want to have a look at this?" And then everybody's coming around and saying, "Have you got one for mine?" So I think with your fuel moisture content, it's this. The sector, we all need to think about how we can use it, and in the end, hopefully, there might be a model to formalise that. But this other aspect that's part of it, the amount of fuel or the distribution of the fuel array, it's also part of MARTA's project. I think that's something that's much more easily understood, and it'll be a combination of them both that's going to help us to go forward.
Well said, Adam. Are there any more questions on the flammability? Because I just want to ask on the jasmine soil moisture. Nope. The currency of the soil moisture, Marta?
Sorry, what was the question about soil moisture?
How up to date will the jasmine?
Yeah, so right now it's up to February, but I think I have to say that this is not my data, it's the Bureau, so I don't have all the details, but I think the reason for that is that they have no automatized the process of running the algorithm as soon as they have the availability data. So I try to check with them how quickly they can go through that process, and I haven't heard from them yet. But I think it will be, my guess is that it will be like 1 week time lag, but I'm not sure, sorry, I cannot answer that question.
Fair enough, Marta. Hopefully we hear from Vinod and Imtiaz, because we've been waiting for a while to see their outputs, and now we can see them, and it'd be nice to engage with those guys as well.
Yes, so...
Yep. Are there any other questions? Okay, so just going back to where we started, the CRC project, and the purpose of today is to gain feedback. So Marta's shown where the form is, and I'd encourage everybody to get on there and share your thoughts. And certainly, Adam, seems like you're a bit more advanced in having used the data, so we'd be keen to see what you've, how you've identified strengths and weaknesses and applications. So it'd be good to share that. So for the current system, we're looking for feedback for that, Marta and the CRCR, as it stands, and suggestions on future developments. So I'd encourage everybody to provide that feedback to Marta through the platform there. And unless there's any other comments from anybody on that, I'll thank everybody for taking the time to join us, and thanks, Marta, for sharing, and hopefully you get lots of feedback within the next few days. So just, yes, while I think of that, if you could have feedback to Marta by next Friday, please. She's got timelines with the CRC. So thanks, Greg, for setting up and doing the testing again. Thanks, everybody, for joining in on the webinar, and hope to talk to you all soon. Cheers.